Hey, welcome back to True Crime with Lux. Today's case is one that involves many victims, but unfortunately not many answers. Today I'm going to be talking about the Santa Rosa hitchhiking murders that took place in 1972 to 1973. We're going to start on February 4th of 1972. 12-year-old Maureen Sterling and 13-year-old Yvonne Weber were middle school girls who had been dropped off at the Redwood Empire ice rink. They ended up leaving the arena at some point, and it's thought that they were trying to hitchhike to somewhere else. However, the arena was the last time anyone saw them alive. Their bodies were found on December 28th of 1972, down an embankment near Porter Creek Road. Investigators found a single earring, some orange beads, and a gold necklace with a cross on it at the scene. The jewelry was identified by Maureen's mother, which led investigators to identify both girls. At the scene, they also found what they believed to be bindings used on the girls. Unfortunately, due to how long they had been out there, their cause of death couldn't be determined. Before the discovery of their bodies, 3 other women had gone missing or were found murdered in the area. All of them had been hitchhiking in the area before just disappearing. Now, Maureen and Yvonne were linked to 3 other murders discovered in 1972 and then 3 more in 1973. They were all believed to have been murdered by the same person or possibly multiple people working together. On March 4th of 1972, 19-year-old Kim Allen had just finished her shift at a grocery store. She had to head to class at the Santa Rosa Junior College right after work, and it was about a 45-minute drive, so she decided to hitchhike there. It wasn't out of the ordinary for her. It was something that she did most days that she had classes, so it wasn't crazy that she was hitchhiking. Around 5 p.m., she got a ride from 2 men that were heading in the direction of the school. But they were only going a few miles up the road, but they said we could take you a little bit closer and you can find somebody and maybe take you the rest of the way. Later, the men would tell police that they dropped her off at the San Rafael exit. They could see her when they were driving away looking for another ride to get closer to school. The next day, 2 high schoolers were walking through the woods near Bennett Valley Road, which wasn't far from that exit that Kim had been dropped off at. They discovered a woman who was naked and dead. They ran to get help, and the sheriffs got there rather quickly. A search of the area showed no signs of any clothing or any items that belonged to her. They did find 1 gold earring, but couldn't determine if it was hers. The only thing at the scene was a wire that was wrapped around her neck, believed to be her cause of death. The coroner determined that she had been tortured to death after his examination showed that the cord around her neck had been slowly tightened over time. He also noted that there were marks on her wrist and ankles, possibly from being tied up, along with an injury to her collarbone, like maybe somebody leaned on it too hard. It was determined that she had also been sexually assaulted, and there was semen found on her body. He told reporters it would have taken roughly 30 minutes for her to die from the cord. Investigators found an imprint at the top of the embankment, kind of like a shoe impression. They believed it was from the killer's foot that slipped due to it being wet. They thought from this imprint that it was possible that whoever dumped her body there had injured himself when he slipped on the mud. Investigators soon released a description of what the woman looked like to the public, and this made a lot of people call in or show up to the sheriff's station wanting answers of, is this my loved one? On March 9th, Kim's roommates came forward saying that they believed it was Kim that they had found. A few hours later, it was confirmed when they had Kim's sister come identify the body. Sheriff started asking her coworkers and friends about the last time anyone had seen her, and they found out that she had left work on March 4th wearing a jacket and her backpack. She also had a wooden soy barrel with Chinese characters on it. Sheriffs hadn't found any of those things with the body, or anywhere near it. It made them think that the killer had taken Kim's stuff, either as a souvenir or to dispose of it somewhere else to kind of delay identifying her. Detectives came to a dead end pretty quickly because they didn't have many leads to begin with, and looking into the ones they did have, they didn't get any real answers as to who could have killed Kim. They ended up asking for help from Peter Barnett, a criminologist, and he was able to give them some generic details of maybe the type of person that would be able to do this, but it wasn't really much to go on. It was just that it was a man, basically. A month later, they had a run through all of the leads, and the case was becoming cold. In April, Lieutenant Kinspaw said that the case was still being investigated actively, but it was more along the lines of them looking into other cases in the area to see if they could connect Kim's death with others' deaths to hopefully get closer to who was doing this. He did say that he worried that they may never find who did it. Even though they didn't have a lot to go on, there was new evidence coming in slowly. A few weeks after Kim's body was discovered, her checkbook was found inside a mailbox 50 miles away. At the end of March, police made an arrest of a 38-year-old mechanic, Robert Bouchon, for kidnapping and assaulting a hitchhiker. He had picked up a hitchhiker and held her at knife point while tying her up and taking her back to his apartment. He held her overnight. She escaped in the morning and she immediately called police and they arrested him. He was convicted for that crime. However, detectives determined that he wasn't involved in Kim's case. Now, the closest thing they came to a suspect in her murder was a few years later, Frederick Manali became a suspect. After he died in a car accident of August of 1976, police discovered very disturbing sadomasochistic drawings that he had made of Kim, along with other students in his classroom. And on top of searching his belongings and his home, they found Kim's backpack. However, that's as far as it went because there was no other evidence and he had already died. Next, we're going to talk about Lori Kursa, who was 13 years old. Her mother had reported her missing on November 11th of 1972 when Lori ran away while out shopping with her. She was last seen by friends on November 20th. Her remains were found on December 14th in a ravine near Calistoga Road. Her cause of death was a broken neck. She likely had died about 2 weeks before being found. Investigators' theory, after talking to a few witnesses that believed that they had seen Lori being kidnapped by two men in a van, and in an attempt to get away, she had jumped from the moving vehicle and falling down a ravine had broken her neck, was their theory. Next is 15-year-old Caroline Davis, who ran away from home on February 6th of 1973. She left a note for her mother saying, "Dear Mom, don't worry too much about me. The only thing I'm going to be doing is keeping myself alive. Love, Caroline." She later sent another letter saying that she never planned coming back home. She spent a few months staying with different family members before deciding to hitchhike to Modesto, California. She was last seen on July 15th of 1973, hitchhiking near Highway 101. Her body was found on July 31st in Santa Rosa, in the same spot that Maureen and Yvonne had been found. Her cause of death was determined to be from poisoning. 23-year-old Teresa Walsh left her husband and son in 1973 to just have a girls' weekend, go have some fun before Christmas. She ended up hitchhiking across California, and in December she was in Malibu but was ready to make her way back home so that she could make it in time for Christmas. She was last seen on December 22nd. Her body was discovered by kayakers in Mark West Creek on December 28th. She had been tied up with rope, sexually assaulted, and strangled to death. On July 2nd of 1979, there were skeletal remains of a young white female found in the same ravine that Lori Kursa had been found in 7 years earlier. The girl had been tied up and placed in a duffel bag before being dumped inside the ravine. Her cause of death couldn't be determined due to how long she had been out there, and there was no other evidence found to identify her. They determined that she may have been between the ages of 16 and 21, had red, auburn, brownish hair, and was about 5'3". They also noted that she had a healed broken rib, so if anybody matching that description that had a broken rib a few years earlier, they wanted people to reach out and help identify her. They believe that she was killed between 1972 and 1974. She is still a Jane Doe. These girls and women became known as the Santa Rosa Hitchhiking murders. This is one of California's most perplexing cold cases because you can't tell if it's one person, if it's multiple people, if any of it's even connected. And there are also 4 other victims that they may be connected if this is being done by a group of people or one person. 17-year-old Lisa Smith was reported missing by her foster parents on March 16th of 1971. On the 26th, she was seen hitchhiking and getting into a car driven by a man. She immediately jumped out of the moving car when the man pulled a gun on her. Now, the woman was treated at a hospital and said her name was Lisa Smith. However, the missing girl is 17, and nurses at the hospital believed that the Lisa Smith that came in after jumping out of that car was in her 20s. So, police believe that the Lisa Smith that went missing, the 17-year-old that they are looking for, and this Lisa Smith that ended up at the hospital are 2 different women, going by different names. So to this day, 17-year-old Lisa Smith has never been found. They think it's a possibility due to the area that she was hitchhiking in when she ran away, that she might be one of the victims, and her body just hasn't been discovered yet. 20-year-old Jeanette Camille was a student at the Santa Rosa Junior College. She was last seen hitchhiking on April 25th of 1972. A friend saw her get into a faded brown Chevy pickup that had a camper over the bed of the truck, and she said the driver looked to be 20 to 30 years old, and he was a white man. Jeanette has never been seen since then, and if she is a victim, her body also hasn't been found. 15-year-old Carrie Graham and 14-year-old Francine Trimble disappeared together on December 16th of 1978. They had gone to a shopping mall in Santa Rosa. Their remains were found in July of 1979. They had been put into garbage bags that were taped shut and buried in an embankment near Highway 20. Due to how long that they were there, it could not be determined how they died, and unfortunately they weren't officially identified until many years later. Using DNA profiling, they were identified in November of 2015. Now, these are just a few of the many victims that police believe are actually out there. And they've talked with potential suspects, but no answers have really come up. These crimes have never been solved, and we don't know, again, if they're connected or if this is just a random dumping ground for many people. However, there have been theories as to possible suspects, and they include some pretty big names. The first one is the Zodiac Killer. And due to a few similarities between known victims and some of the women that were found, however, it was ruled out by law enforcement who believe since he didn't sexually assault his victims and some of the ones found it wasn't likely that it was him. However, I think it could be possible that some of the victims might have been his, since we don't know that all of the ones that were found belong to the same killer. The next suspect is Arthur Allen, who he did own a mobile home park in Santa Rosa and had been arrested on September 27th of 1974 for violating a child. He pleaded guilty and was released in 1977. Keep in mind that Arthur Allen is the main suspect in the Zodiac killings. Next is going to be Jim Mordecai. He became a suspect after he died in 2008 from cancer. His family had a ranch in Sonoma County, and in the 70s, that's where he spent a lot of his time. After his death, his family discovered a very strange box that had a lot of mismatched jewelry that didn't belong to anyone in the family. In these things that they found was a hoop earring that had orange beads, just like the one that was found at the scene of Maureen and Yvonne's bodies. Unfortunately, the family ended up getting rid of these things before giving it to the police, but they did give the police a DNA profile for him, and that's as far as we know about them looking into him as far as the killings go. Now, all cases are still being looked into according to Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. Unfortunately, no one has been arrested, though. Even with the many people that were found out there and not knowing if they're all connected to the same killer, you would think someone out there would have at least their case closed. And unfortunately, nothing. There's no one being held accountable. There's nobody that's been caught for any of these. It's just unfortunate of how many girls and women whose lives were taken and just tragically it's still unsolved. All of them are just waiting for justice, for answers. The many families. I want to say thank you for listening with me today. Remember to follow or subscribe, which is very weird to say, but it does help. I really appreciate you all, and I hope everybody has a great day and you stay safe out there because just always be vigilant. And I will be back with you next week.